My daughter-in-law called me a parasite. My ex-husband laughed while throwing me on the street, penniless. My own brother said he was ashamed of my failure. They toasted with champagne while I slept on a park bench in winter, sick and alone. I lost 2 toes to frostbite that night, but I gained something far more valuable: clarity about who my family really was. Before we continue, comment where you're watching from, and subscribe to the channel. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching. The day started with papers. Raymond slid the divorce documents across the kitchen table at 7 in the morning. The same table where we'd eaten 30 years of breakfasts together. The same table where we'd celebrated anniversaries, birthdays, our son Derek's acceptance to Northwestern. "Sign here," he said, "and here, and here." I didn't read them. I should have. But after 30 years of marriage, I trusted him. That was my first mistake. Victoria stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. My daughter-in-law had moved into our guest room 6 months earlier, when Derek started traveling for work. She said it was temporary. She said she missed family. I should have known then. "What happens after I sign?" I asked Raymond. "I don't care where. Just leave." Victoria stepped forward. Her heels clicked on the hardwood floor I'd polished every week for 28 years. "Let me be clear, Linda. You're a parasite. You've been living off Raymond's money for decades while contributing nothing. The house is his. The accounts are his. The car is his. You have nothing because you are nothing." The words hit like physical blows. I looked at Raymond, the man who'd promised to love me until death, who'd held my hand through my mother's funeral, who'd cried when Derek was born. Not a sympathetic smile. Not an embarrassed smile. A satisfied smile, like a man watching a plan finally come together. "Raymond, what is this? We've been married for 30 years, and I'm done. Sign the papers and get out." The front door opened. My brother Kenneth walked in, carrying a bottle of champagne. "Is it done?" he asked Victoria. I stared at Kenny, my baby brother, the boy I'd protected from bullies in elementary school. The man I'd loaned money to a dozen times when his gambling got out of control. "Kenny, what are you doing here?" He couldn't meet my eyes. "Just sign, Linda. It's easier. For everyone." He finally looked at me. "I'm ashamed of you, honestly. 52 years old and you can't even take care of yourself. You've been mooching off Raymond forever. It's pathetic." I felt the ground shifting under my feet. 3 people I had loved, trusted, cared for, standing together against me. This wasn't a spontaneous decision. This was a plan that had been building for months, maybe years. "I'm not signing anything until I talk to a lawyer." Victoria's smile was ice. "You don't have money for a lawyer. Raymond froze all the accounts this morning. Your car is registered in his name. Your phone?" She held up my iPhone, which I'd left charging in the kitchen. "Is on his plan. You have nothing, Linda. Accept it." She dropped my phone in her half-empty coffee cup. I watched the screen flicker and die. "Get out," Raymond said. "Now." I looked at the 3 of them, tried to find any trace of the people I thought I knew. I went upstairs and packed one suitcase, one small suitcase after 30 years in this house. I took clothes, toiletries, a photo of Derek as a baby. Everything else was Raymond's, according to the papers I'd just signed without reading. When I came back downstairs, they were already popping the champagne. "To freedom," Victoria said, raising her glass. "To finally being rid of the dead weight," Raymond added. Kenny laughed. My brother laughed while toasting my destruction. I walked out the front door with my suitcase. It was January in Chicago, 14 degrees, with snow expected. I had no phone, no car, no money, no plan. The door closed behind me. I heard the lock click. I stood on the porch of what used to be my home, watching my breath cloud in the frozen air. I'd lived in this house for 28 years. I'd raised my son here. I'd planted the garden in the backyard, painted the kitchen cabinets, chosen every piece of furniture. Now it was gone. All of it. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stay on that porch, listening to their laughter through the windows. I dragged my suitcase through streets I'd driven 1,000 times, past stores where I'd shopped, restaurants where we'd celebrated anniversaries. Everyone I passed looked through me. Just another woman with a suitcase, probably heading to the train station. Nobody realized I was homeless. Nobody stopped to ask if I was okay. By 5 o'clock, it was dark. The temperature was dropping. I'd been walking for hours, and my feet were numb in my thin leather shoes. I had no destination, no plan, no hope. I found a park bench near Lincoln Park. It was partially sheltered by trees, with a view of the frozen lagoon. I sat down and tried to think. I had no phone to call anyone, no credit cards to buy a hotel room, no friends whose addresses I remembered. Victoria had systematically isolated me from everyone over the past 6 months, and I'd been too blind to see it. The snow started around 7, light at first, then heavier. I pulled my coat tighter and curled up on the bench, using my suitcase as a pillow. I thought about the champagne toast, about Victoria's smile, about Raymond's laugh, about Kenny, my baby brother, raising his glass to my destruction. I'd loaned Kenny $80,000 over the years. Every time he had a gambling debt, every time creditors came calling, I was there. Raymond had complained, but I'd insisted. He was my brother. Now I understood. Kenny owed Raymond money, probably the $80,000 I'd given him, which had somehow ended up in Raymond's pocket. Victoria had brokered some deal, Kenny's debt forgiven in exchange for his betrayal. My own brother had sold me for money he owed me in the first place. The irony should have made me laugh. Instead, I cried. Tears froze on my cheeks. The snow kept falling. Sometime around midnight, I stopped shivering. That should have scared me. I'd been a hotel manager for 15 years, and I knew what hypothermia looked like, but I was too tired to care. I was going to die on this bench, 52 years old, and I was going to freeze to death because my husband, my brother, and my daughter-in-law wanted to drink champagne in my living room. The next thing I remember is light, bright light, and a woman's voice. Ma'am? Ma'am, can you hear me? I opened my eyes. I was on the ground somehow, lying in the snow beside the bench. A woman in a restaurant uniform was kneeling next to me, her hand on my shoulder. Jesus Christ, she's alive. Carlos, call 911. The ambulance arrived. Paramedics wrapped me in thermal blankets and loaded me onto a stretcher. I tried to answer their questions, but my jaw wouldn't work properly. At the hospital, they told me I had severe hypothermia. They told me I was lucky to be alive. They told me that a few more hours and I would have died. Then they told me about my feet. The frostbite was extensive, the doctor said. He was young, maybe 30, with sympathetic eyes. We had to amputate 2 toes on your left foot. I'm sorry, 2 toes. I'd lost 2 toes because my family threw me out in winter without a coat warm enough to survive. I stared at the ceiling of the hospital room, white tiles, fluorescent lights, the beep of monitors marking the fact that I was somehow still alive. Raymond's laugh echoed in my memory, Victoria's voice calling me a parasite, Kenny toasting to my destruction. They had tried to kill me, maybe not intentionally, but they had to know what would happen. January in Chicago. No money, no phone, no car. They had to know I might not survive, and they'd done it anyway. A social worker came to see me the next day. Her name was Rosa, and she had a kind face and endless patience. Do you have anyone we can call? She asked. Family? Friends? I thought about the question. Did I have anyone? My son Derek was traveling in Europe for work. He'd been distant lately. Victoria's doing, I now realized. My parents were dead. My friends had slowly disappeared over the past year. Victoria had made sure of that. No, I said. I don't have anyone. Rosa nodded. She didn't look surprised. We can connect you with social services. There are shelters, programs for people in your situation. People who find themselves suddenly homeless. It's more common than you might think. Homeless. I was homeless. 52 years old, 2 missing toes, and homeless. Okay, I said. What do I do? Rosa helped me navigate the system. Medicaid would cover my hospital bills. A shelter downtown had an open bed. There were programs for job training, for housing assistance, for people rebuilding their lives from nothing. I listened to everything she said. I took notes on paper she provided. I asked questions and wrote down answers. Because something had changed inside me on that park bench. Something had frozen along with my toes and would never thaw. I was going to survive this. I was going to rebuild. And when I did, Raymond and Victoria and Kenny were going to learn what it cost to throw a woman away like garbage. The champagne toast would come back to haunt them. I just didn't know how yet. A week later, I was discharged from the hospital. Rosa drove me to a women's shelter in Rogers Park. It was clean, but crowded, with bunk beds lined up in a converted gymnasium. "It's temporary," she said, "just until we can find you more permanent housing." I thanked her and went inside. I found my assigned bunk, made the bed with the sheets they provided, and lay down. Through the window, I could see the Chicago skyline. Somewhere out there, Raymond was sleeping in our bed. Victoria was probably planning her next move. Kenny was gambling away money he didn't have. And I was here, starting over at 52 with nothing but a suitcase and 2 missing toes. The woman in the next bunk looked at me with understanding. "First night?" she asked. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But first, it was going to get a lot worse. The shelter had rules. Lights out at 10, breakfast at 6, sign in and out, no alcohol, no drugs, no visitors after 8. I followed every rule. I had nowhere else to go. The first week, I barely spoke. I lay on my bunk, staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment of the past 30 years. Every sign I'd missed. Every warning I'd ignored. Every time Victoria had smiled at me while planning my destruction. The other women in the shelter had their own stories: domestic violence, addiction, mental illness, bad luck. Some had been here for months. Some were just passing through. Maria, the woman in the next bunk, had been at the shelter for 3 weeks. She'd fled an abusive husband with her 2 children. She worked nights at a diner and was saving for a deposit on an apartment. "You have to keep moving," she told me one morning. "If you stop, you drown." I thought about that. I'd been drowning for 30 years without realizing it. Raymond had kept me just dependent enough, just isolated enough, just uncertain enough that I never saw the water rising. Rosa, the social worker, came to see me twice a week. She helped me navigate the bureaucracy of being homeless: food stamps, Medicaid, job training programs, emergency assistance. "You need identification," she said during our 3rd meeting. "Driver's license, social security card, birth certificate. Without those, you can't do anything. They're all at the house. Raymond has everything. We can get replacements. It takes time, but we can do it. Time." That was one thing I had plenty of. Rosa helped me fill out forms. Request for duplicate birth certificate. Application for replacement social security card. Temporary state ID. Each form required other forms. Each document required other documents. "The system isn't designed for people starting from zero," Rosa said, "but we'll get through it." 2 weeks after I arrived at the shelter, I finally got a replacement phone, a basic smartphone from a charity program, nothing like the iPhone Victoria had drowned in her coffee, but it worked. The first thing I did was try to call Derek. The number went straight to voicemail. I left a message explaining what had happened, that his father had thrown me out, that I was in a shelter, that I needed help. Derek didn't call back. I tried again the next day, and the next. Each time, voicemail. Each time, no response. On the 4th day, I got a text message from an unknown number. "Mom, Victoria told me what happened. She said you attacked Dad and threatened her. She said you've been drinking. I think you need help, but not the kind I can give. Please don't contact me again until you've gotten treatment." I stared at the message for a long time. Victoria had told Derek I attacked Raymond, that I was an alcoholic, that I was dangerous. My own son believed I was capable of violence against the man who threw me into the street in January with nothing. The lies were so complete, so thorough, that they'd even turned my child against me. I saved the message. Evidence, Rosa called it. Documentation of the pattern. "Your daughter-in-law isolated you from your friends," Rosa said when I showed her. "Now she's isolating you from your son. This is textbook domestic abuse behavior." "But she's not my partner. She's my daughter-in-law." Abuse doesn't require a romantic relationship. It requires power and control. Victoria had both. Rosa connected me with a legal aid attorney named James Morrison. He was in his 50s, tired-looking, with a caseload that would have crushed anyone with less dedication. "Tell me everything," he said when we met. "Start from the beginning." So I did. The 30 years of marriage, the gradual isolation, Victoria moving in, the morning with the divorce papers, the champagne toast, the park bench. James took notes. He asked questions. He didn't judge. "You signed the papers without reading them," he said when I finished. "I didn't have a choice. They had my phone. They had my car. They had everything. That's duress. The question is whether we can prove it." He leaned back in his chair. "Tell me about your finances during the marriage." Raymond handled everything. "I worked for the first 15 years. I was a hotel manager at the Ritz-Carlton. But when Derek started high school, Raymond convinced me to quit. He said we didn't need the money. He said I should focus on the house, on our son." "So you gave up your career?" "I gave up everything." The words tasted bitter. "I haven't worked in 15 years. I have no recent job history, no current skills, nothing." James was quiet for a moment. "Did you ever have any separate assets? Anything in your name alone?" I thought about it. Everything was joint. The house, the accounts, the cars, all in both our names. At least that's what I thought. "What do you mean that's what you thought?" "Raymond handled the paperwork. I signed what he told me to sign. I trusted him." James made another note. "I'm going to need to see those divorce papers. Do you have a copy?" "I signed them, but I never got copies." "That's unusual. Both parties should receive copies." He stood up. "Let me make some calls. There are ways to get court records." A week later, James called me back to his office. "I found something," he said. His voice was different, harder. "Something you need to see." He spread papers across his desk. The divorce papers I'd signed, property records, bank statements. "The house," he said, pointing to a document. "You said it was in both your names." "It was. We bought it together in 1997. "Not anymore. The title was transferred to Victoria Chen's name 3 months before you signed those divorce papers. Your name was removed." I stared at the document. My signature was on it, or what looked like my signature. I never signed this. I never even saw this document. I suspected as much. "Look at the date. October 15th. Where were you on October 15th? I thought back. October, 3 months before the divorce. Victoria had just moved in. I remember because Derek came home for a weekend and we had a family dinner. The memory surfaced slowly. Victoria asked me to sign some insurance papers. She said Derek needed me as a co-signer for a new policy. "Do you remember what the papers looked like?" "They were in a folder." She handed me a pen and showed me where to sign. I didn't read them. They were supposed to be routine. James nodded grimly. "She tricked you into signing the title transfer. Probably buried the real document under innocuous papers." He pointed to another document. "The bank accounts are worse. All the joint accounts were closed in November. The money, over $400,000, was transferred to an account in Victoria's name. $400,000. My share of 30 years of marriage. How is that possible? I would have noticed if our accounts were empty." Raymond opened new accounts in his name only. He kept the same banks, the same automatic payments. You probably never checked the account numbers because everything seemed normal. It had seemed normal. Bills got paid, groceries got bought. Nothing seemed different. "They planned this for months," I said. The realization was devastating. Maybe years. At least 6 months that I can document. Probably longer. James gathered the papers. "There's more. I found records of loans taken out in your name. Credit cards you never applied for. A second mortgage on the house that was taken out and paid off before the title transfer. I never took out any loans." "I know. Your signature is forged on all of them. Either that, or you were tricked into signing, like with the title transfer." I sat in silence, trying to process what he was telling me. Raymond and Victoria hadn't just thrown me out. They had systematically stolen my identity, my money, my home, my credit. "This is fraud," I said finally. "Multiple counts of fraud, identity theft, forgery, wire fraud. If they moved money across state lines." James's expression was grave. "This is federal territory. What does that mean?" "It means this isn't just a civil matter anymore. This is criminal." He handed me a business card. "Special Agent Margaret Chen, FBI Financial Crimes Unit." I've already spoken to her about your case. She's interested. I looked at the card. My husband and daughter-in-law had committed federal crimes against me. Now we build a case. I'll handle the civil side, getting the divorce decree overturned, recovering your assets. Agent Chen will handle the criminal investigation. But Linda... He paused. This is going to be a fight. Raymond has resources. He has connections. Victoria is a practicing attorney. They're not going to go quietly. I don't care how hard it is. I want justice. Then we'll get it. One step at a time. I left James's office with a stack of documents and a head full of rage. For 30 years, I had trusted Raymond. I had built my life around him, sacrificed my career for him, believed every word he said, and he had been stealing from me the entire time. The shelter felt different that night. The same bunk, the same industrial sheets, the same sounds of other women crying in their sleep. But I was different. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was a witness, a plaintiff, a future testimony. Rosa noticed the change when she visited the next day. Something happened, she said. I told her about the meeting with James, the forged signatures, the stolen money, the FBI. She listened carefully. Angry. Angrier than I've ever been in my life. But also, I searched for the word. Focused. For the first time since this started, I have a purpose. I considered the question. Justice. There's a difference. Just be careful. The line between justice and revenge gets blurry, especially when you've been hurt this badly. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about the documents, the forged signatures, the timeline of betrayal. 6 months of planning, maybe longer. Every dinner, every conversation, every moment of apparent normalcy had been a performance. Raymond kissing me goodbye in the morning while knowing he was about to destroy me. Victoria asking about my day while plotting to steal my home. My phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Mrs. Brennan, this is Agent Margaret Chen. James Morrison forwarded your case file. I'd like to meet tomorrow to discuss the evidence. Please call my office to schedule. I typed back, I'll be there. Sleep came eventually, but it wasn't peaceful. I dreamed of champagne corks popping and Victoria's smile and the cold bite of snow against my skin. When I woke up, my left foot was throbbing. The phantom pain from my missing toes, the doctor had called it. A reminder of what Raymond's plan had cost me. I looked at the stumps where my toes had been. Proof. Physical proof that they had tried to kill me, whether they admitted it or not. I was going to make sure a jury saw these scars. I was going to make sure the whole world knew what Raymond and Victoria had done. The fight was just beginning. Agent Margaret Chen looked exactly like her voice sounded on the phone. Sharp, efficient, no nonsense. She was in her mid-40s, with graying hair pulled back in a practical bun, and glasses that she pushed up her nose every few minutes. Mrs. Brennan, she said, shaking my hand. Thank you for coming in. James Morrison sent me an extensive file, but I'd like to hear the story directly from you. I sat in the metal chair across from her desk and told her everything. The divorce, the champagne, the park bench, the hospital, the shelter, the forged documents. She took notes on a yellow legal pad, occasionally asking clarifying questions. When I finished, she set down her pen. James was right to contact us. What you're describing is a coordinated fraud scheme spanning at least 6 months, possibly longer. Identity theft, wire fraud, bank fraud, forgery. We're looking at multiple federal charges. Will they go to prison? If we can prove everything, yes. But proof is the key word. Your ex-husband and daughter-in-law have been careful. They left a paper trail, but it's designed to look legitimate. The signatures are forged. I never signed those documents. We'll need handwriting experts to confirm that. We'll need to trace the money. We'll need witness testimony about your mental state during the signing. She paused. This kind of case takes time. Months, possibly years. I thought about the shelter, the bunk bed, the daily humiliation of having nothing. I don't have years, I said. You don't have a choice. Agent Chen's voice was not unkind, but it was firm. White-collar crime investigations move slowly. We have to build an airtight case or the defense attorneys will tear it apart. Victoria is an attorney. Yes, I know. She's a partner at Henderson and Associates, corporate law, specializing in mergers and acquisitions. Agent Chen's expression hardened. She's used her legal knowledge to structure this scheme. Every document is technically compliant. Every transaction looks legitimate on the surface. She knew exactly how to stay just inside the gray areas. So she'll get away with it? I didn't say that. I said it will take time. She leaned forward. Mrs. Brennan, I've been investigating financial crimes for 18 years. I've seen schemes far more sophisticated than this one. Victoria Chen is smart, but she's not as smart as she thinks she is. There are always mistakes, always threads that unravel. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. Right now, nothing. Let us investigate. Keep your head down. Don't contact your ex-husband or Victoria. Don't talk to your son about the case. Everything you say could be used to complicate the prosecution. Don't contact my son. As if Derek would even answer my calls. One more thing, Agent Chen said as I stood to leave. Your divorce was handled by Victoria's firm. Henderson and Associates represented your husband in the divorce proceedings. Victoria wasn't directly involved, that would have been too obvious, but the attorney who handled your case was her colleague, a man named Robert Walsh. The name was vaguely familiar. A face at holiday parties. Someone Victoria had introduced as a work friend. Technically, yes. There's no conflict of interest because Victoria wasn't your attorney. She was just a family member. But it means the entire divorce was handled by people loyal to her. The rushed timeline. The lack of discovery. The asset distribution that gave you nothing. It was all designed to strip you of your rights before you realized what was happening. I walked out of the FBI building into the gray Chicago afternoon. March now. 2 months since Raymond had handed me those papers. 2 months since I'd lost everything. Agent Chen's words echoed in my mind. The divorce was designed to strip me of my rights. But what rights? What assets did I have that Raymond and Victoria didn't know about? My mother had died 3 years ago. She'd been estranged from the family for decades, a bitter woman who'd never approved of Raymond, never approved of my choices, never approved of anything. I'd barely spoken to her in the last 10 years of her life, but she'd had money, family money, from my grandfather's printing business. Money that was held in trust. A trust I'd never claimed because I'd thought Raymond's income was enough. A trust I'd almost forgotten existed. I found a public library with free internet access. I sat down at a computer and typed in my mother's name. Eleanor Brennan, trust, estate. The search results were sparse. My mother had been a private person who kept her finances invisible. But I found what I was looking for, the name of her estate attorney, Gerald Witherspoon, of Witherspoon and Associates in Oak Park. I called the number from my basic phone. Witherspoon and Associates, how may I direct your call? I need to speak with Gerald Witherspoon. My name is Linda Brennan. My mother was Eleanor Brennan. She passed away 3 years ago. One moment, please. 30 seconds later, an elderly man's voice came on the line. Mrs. Brennan, this is Gerald Witherspoon. I've been trying to reach you for quite some time. Regarding your mother's estate, the trust she established. I sent letters to your home address, but they were returned unopened. I tried calling, but the number was disconnected. Raymond. Raymond had intercepted the letters. Raymond had changed the phone number. What trust, Mr. Witherspoon? Perhaps you should come to my office. There are documents you need to see. I took 3 buses to Oak Park. Gerald Witherspoon's office was in a small Victorian building that looked like it hadn't been updated since the 1970s. He was waiting for me in the lobby, a thin, white-haired man in his 70s with kind eyes behind thick glasses. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. Please follow me. His office was filled with papers and leather-bound books. He cleared a chair for me and sat behind his desk. Your mother established this trust in 1985, he said, sliding a document across the desk. She funded it with her inheritance from your grandfather. The proceeds from the sale of Brennan Printing. I looked at the document. Legal language, dense paragraphs, numbered clauses. I don't understand legal documents very well. Let me summarize. Your mother established a trust for your benefit. The principal was approximately $2 million at the time of establishment. It has been invested conservatively over the past 40 years. $2 million? That was the original amount. With compound interest and careful investment, the current value is approximately $3.1 million. $3.1 million? Yes. The trust became accessible to you when you turned 52. Your mother specified that age because she believed he cleared his throat. That by 52, you would be old enough to know what to do with it and young enough to enjoy it. 52. I had turned 52 6 months ago. Why didn't I know about this? Your mother requested that we not inform you until the trust matured. She wanted it to be a surprise. After she passed, I sent multiple notifications to your home address. As I said, they were returned unopened. Raymond had known. He must have known. Those returned letters. He'd been hiding them from me for 3 years. The money, I said slowly. Is it safe? Can Raymond access it? The trust is entirely separate from your marital assets. It was established before your marriage and never commingled with joint funds. Your ex-husband has no claim to it whatsoever. $3.1 million. Mine. Safe. Untouchable. I started to laugh. Then I started to cry. Then I didn't know what I was doing. Just sitting in this old man's office, feeling something I hadn't felt in months. Witherspoon, I said when I could speak again. I need to access this money, today, if possible. Of course. We'll need to verify your identity, but given the circumstances. He glanced at my worn coat, my thin face, the desperate look in my eyes. I believe we can expedite the process. He made some calls. He had me sign documents, real documents, documents I read carefully, documents that gave me control of my own money. By the end of the day, I had a new bank account with $3.1 million in it. A debit card was being rushed overnight. I walked out of Gerald Witherspoon's office as a different person, not a victim, not a homeless woman sleeping in a shelter, not a broken failure who'd lost everything to her husband's scheme. My mother, who had disapproved of everything I'd ever done, who had criticized Raymond from the start, who had warned me again and again that he was hiding something. My mother had saved me. She'd known. Somehow, she'd known that one day I would need this money, and she'd made sure it would be there when I did. I called James Morrison from a payphone. James, it's Linda Brennan. Linda? Is everything okay? Agent Chen said your meeting went well. I need you to do something for me. I want you to find real estate, high-end real estate, something with security, something with gates and guards and cameras. Linda, did something happen? Yes, something happened. I inherited $3.1 million from my mother's trust. Raymond didn't know about it. Neither did Victoria. And now I'm going to use every penny of it to make sure they pay for what they did. Another pause. Then James laughed. A surprised, delighted sound. Well, Mrs. Brennan, I think we're going to have a very interesting conversation. I hung up the phone and looked at the Chicago skyline. The same buildings I'd stared at from my shelter window. The same city where Raymond was probably eating dinner right now, satisfied that he'd destroyed me. He had no idea what was coming. I was going to build a new life, a better life. And when I was ready, I was going to show them exactly what it cost to throw away a woman they thought was worthless. My mother had always said revenge was a dish best served cold. I was just starting to understand what she meant. The house found me before I found it. James called 3 days after our conversation. I've got something you need to see. Can you meet me in Lake Forest? Lake Forest, one of Chicago's wealthiest suburbs, where the old money lived behind stone walls and iron gates. The property was at the end of a private road, hidden from the street by a grove of oak trees. When James pulled up to the gate, I understood why he'd been so insistent. It was a mansion, not just a large house, a genuine mansion, with a circular driveway, marble columns, and windows that gleamed like jewels in the afternoon sun. It belonged to a tech executive who's relocating to Singapore, James explained. She needs to sell quickly. The asking price is $2.1 million, but she'll take $1.8 for a fast close. $1.8 million. That would leave me with over $1 million for everything else. Look at the security. He pointed to the gate, ornate iron, topped with gold-painted spikes. 8-foot perimeter fence, motion sensors, security cameras covering every angle. He gestured toward the house. Reinforced doors, panic room, direct connection to the local police. It's your fortress. After everything you've been through, I thought you might appreciate some security. I walked through the gate and up the driveway. The house was even more impressive up close. 3 stories of gray stone with a portico that made me feel like I was entering a palace. Inside, everything was light and space. High ceilings, hardwood floors, a kitchen with marble countertops and professional appliances, bedrooms larger than my entire apartment at the shelter. "There's one more thing," James said. He led me to the backyard. Half an acre of manicured lawn with a swimming pool and a separate guest house. The previous owner bred German shepherds, show dogs. The kennel is state-of-the-art, but she's taking her dogs to Singapore. I looked at the empty kennel. Something stirred in my mind. "I want it," I said. "The house, the security, everything. Make the offer today." The closing took 2 weeks. The fastest James had ever seen, he said. By April, I had the keys to my new home. I spent the first night alone, walking through empty rooms that echoed with my footsteps. This was mine. Not Raymond's, not Victoria's, mine. The next morning, I drove to a German shepherd breeder in Wisconsin. I'd done my research. This kennel produced dogs that were intelligent, loyal, and protective, guard dogs and family companions. The owner, a woman named Sarah, showed me her latest litter. 8 puppies, 6 weeks old, stumbling over each other in their eagerness to reach me. 2 of them caught my attention. A male with a darker coat and alert eyes. A female with lighter coloring and a calm, assessing gaze. "These 2, I said. "I want these 2. They're from championship lines," Sarah said. "Excellent temperament. They'll need training, of course. Guard dogs aren't born. They're made. I'll hire the best trainer in Illinois." I named them Justice and Truth. Every time I called them, I would remember why I'd bought them. The names weren't chosen randomly. Justice for everything I'd been denied when Raymond handed me those papers. Truth for every lie Victoria had told. Every deception she'd woven into my life. When these dogs barked, when they stood guard at my door, they would be shouting what I had been unable to say for 30 years. The trainer, Marcus, came highly recommended. Former military canine handler. He assessed both puppies and nodded approvingly. "Good instincts. They're already protective of you. With proper training, they'll be able to identify threats, respond to commands, and provide personal security. 6 months to a year for full training. But you'll see results within weeks." The weeks became months. Justice and Truth grew from clumsy puppies into powerful, alert guardians. They learned to recognize friends and identify strangers. They learned commands in German: attack, release, guard, heal. They learned to watch my face for signals and respond to threats before I even knew they existed. While the dogs trained, I rebuilt my life. I hired a personal shopper to replace my wardrobe. Not flashy or extravagant, elegant. The kind of clothes that spoke of quiet wealth and impeccable taste. Victoria had called me a parasite who contributed nothing. I was going to show her what nothing looked like. I reconnected with old friends, the ones Victoria had systematically pushed away. Many of them had been suspicious of my sudden isolation, my unanswered calls, my missed events. When I told them what had happened, they were horrified. "We knew something was wrong," my friend Patricia said over lunch. "But Raymond kept saying you were dealing with health issues, that you needed space. We believed him. He was lying. About everything. We know that now." She squeezed my hand. "We're so sorry we weren't there for you." I didn't blame them. Raymond had been lying for 30 years. He was good at it. A master manipulator who could convince anyone of anything, including the woman who'd shared his bed for 3 decades. I also started working with a therapist. Sarah Mitchell specialized in trauma and domestic abuse. She helped me understand that what I'd experienced wasn't just betrayal. It was systematic dehumanization. "They didn't just steal your money," Dr. Mitchell said during one of our sessions. "They tried to steal your sense of self, your identity, your belief that you deserve to exist. They almost succeeded." Almost, but here you are, rebuilding, fighting back. That takes extraordinary strength, Linda. I didn't feel strong. I felt angry. "But Doctor," Mitchell said anger could be healthy, as long as I channeled it productively. Agent Chen called with updates on the investigation. They'd traced the money through 3 separate accounts. They'd found evidence that Victoria had accessed my identity documents months before the divorce. They'd discovered that Kenneth, my own brother, had been in contact with Raymond for years, passing along information about my movements, my conversations, my trust in him. "Your brother is cooperating," Agent Chen said. "He's agreed to testify in exchange for reduced charges on his gambling debts." "Kenneth is cooperating?" "He didn't have a choice. We found evidence that he helped Raymond intercept your mail, including the letters from your mother's estate attorney. That's mail fraud. He was looking at 5 years. My brother, the boy I'd protected, the man I'd supported, had been Raymond's spy all along. Now we wait. The grand jury convenes next month. We're seeking indictments for Raymond and Victoria on multiple counts of fraud, forgery, and conspiracy." 6 months passed. Justice and Truth completed their training. Marcus pronounced them ready. "These are the finest personal protection dogs I've ever trained," he said. "They'll give their lives for you, but more importantly, they'll make sure no one ever hurts you again." I looked at my dogs. Justice with his dark, intelligent eyes. Truth with her calm, watchful presence. They had become my family, my protectors, my reminders of what I was fighting for. The grand jury indicted Raymond and Victoria in October. 23 counts between them. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, conspiracy, mail fraud, wire fraud. The news hit the papers. Prominent attorney and husband indicted in elaborate fraud scheme. Victoria's face on the front page, Raymond's mugshot in the local news. My phone started ringing, reporters wanting interviews, old acquaintances wanting gossip. Derek. "Mom." His voice was hesitant, confused. "I saw the news. What's happening?" "What's happening, Derek, is that your father and your wife tried to destroy me, and they almost succeeded." Victoria lied. "She's been lying since the day you met her. She stole my identity. She stole my money. She and your father threw me out in January and toasted with champagne while I froze on a park bench." Silence on the other end. "Mom, I didn't know. I tried to tell you. I called you from the shelter, Derek. I left messages. You sent me a text saying I was an alcoholic who attacked your father. Victoria showed me photos. I thought you were unstable. I looked like a woman who'd been thrown out of her home with nothing in the middle of winter. I looked like someone who lost 2 toes to frostbite because her family left her to die. I'm so sorry, Mom. I know you are, but sorry doesn't fix what happened. Sorry doesn't give me back my toes or the months I spent in a shelter. Sorry doesn't undo the betrayal." I thought about it. My son, my only child, the baby I'd held in my arms, the boy I'd raised, the man I'd lost to Victoria's manipulation. Not yet. Not until the trial is over. "But Derek, you should know something. I have a new home. A better home than anything your father ever provided. I have resources. I have dogs who protect me. And I have the truth on my side. When you're ready to hear all of it, really hear it, I'll be here." I hung up the phone. Justice and Truth came to sit at my feet, sensing my emotions. The trial was set for January. 1 year after Raymond had handed me those divorce papers. 1 year. It felt like a lifetime. But I was ready. I had my home. I had my dogs. I had my money and my lawyers and my evidence. And I had something Raymond and Victoria would never understand. Patience. The kind of patience that comes from surviving the worst night of your life and waking up determined to make it mean something. They had tried to erase me, to reduce me to nothing. They had no idea what I had become. They came on a Sunday afternoon. I was in the garden with Justice and Truth, enjoying the October sunshine, when the security monitor in my pocket buzzed. Someone at the gate. I looked at the camera feed and felt my heart stop. Raymond, Victoria, Kenneth, all 3 of them, standing outside my iron gate with suitcases at their feet. Raymond pressed the intercom button. Linda, it's Raymond. We need to talk." I stared at the screen. 1 year ago, these 3 people had thrown me out like garbage. They had toasted with champagne while I froze on a park bench. They had stolen my money, forged my signature, and turned my own son against me. Now they were at my gate, with suitcases. I walked slowly toward the front of the property, justice and truth flanking me. I didn't approach the gate immediately. I let them wait, let them stand there in their expensive clothes with their designer luggage, wondering what I would do. Victoria was the first to notice me through the iron bars. "Linda!" She tried to smile, but her face was strained, desperate. "Thank God. We've been trying to reach you for weeks." I stopped about 10 feet from the gate. Justice and Truth sat at my sides, alert, watching the 3 figures beyond the fence. "The indictments must have made that difficult," I said. "Being arrested tends to interrupt communication." Raymond stepped forward. He looked different than I remembered. Older, smaller, reduced. The confident man who had handed me divorce papers a year ago was gone. In his place was someone who looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. "Linda, please. We made mistakes. Terrible mistakes. But we're family." "Family?" The word tasted like poison. Family doesn't throw each other out in January with no money, no phone, no coat. Family doesn't forge signatures and steal hundreds of thousands of dollars. Family doesn't toast with champagne while watching someone walk toward their death. "We didn't know you would..." "Didn't know I would what? Freeze? Lose 2 toes to frostbite? Almost die on a park bench while you celebrated getting rid of me?" Kenneth tried to speak. My brother, looking even worse than Raymond. Gaunt, twitchy, the look of a man whose debts had finally caught up with him. "Linda, I'm sorry. I was in trouble. Raymond offered to forgive what I owed him if you just helped him destroy your sister, if you just intercepted my mail, if you just fed him information about my life for years so he could plan the perfect betrayal. It wasn't supposed to go this far." "How far was it supposed to go, Kenny? Was I supposed to die quickly so you wouldn't have to think about it? Or was I supposed to disappear quietly so you could pretend I never existed?" Victoria stepped closer to the gate, her fingers wrapping around the iron bars. "Linda, please. My license has been suspended pending the trial. Raymond's assets are frozen. We have nowhere to go. We hoped that you might find it in your heart to help us." I laughed. The sound echoed across the driveway, harsh and cold. "You hoped I would help you. After everything you did,